All right, good evening. Public Act 100-0640 amends the Open Meetings Act to expressly authorize public bodies to meet remotely in certain circumstances without the otherwise required quorum present at the meeting place. This law requires that the head of the public body determine that an in-person meeting is not practical or prudent because of a disaster. So Andrew, as the meeting chair, I'll ask you to make that determination once the meeting is called to order. At least one member of the public body or the chief administrative officer or the chief legal officer must be physically present at the meeting place unless it isn't feasible because of the disaster. So I'm here at the library this evening. We should do a roll call after the meeting is called to order, and all votes will be by roll call. As with all open meetings, we will provide space for public comments in accordance with the law. For the purposes of this virtual meeting, we've asked for the public to submit their comments via email or voice message, and I will read them aloud at the appropriate time. This meeting will be recorded and will be available on the library's website for 30 days and will be archived in our administrative offices thereafter. All yours, Andrew.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the Aurora Public Library District Board of Directors to order at 6:04 p.m. on March 24th, 2021. The Aurora Public Library District Board of Directors finds an in-person meeting is not practical or prudent at this time because of the ongoing public health emergency and believes it is in the library's best interest to hold a virtual meeting to perform our essential business. At this time, Melinda, please call the roll.
Dee Vasili,
Present.
Jeff Butler,
Here.
Joe Philippek,
Here.
Melinda Riddick, here, John Savage. Absent Eva Serrano,
Here.
Andrew Smith.
Here, we have a quorum. All right, looks like we do have one change to our agenda this evening. We will need an executive session to address collective negotiating matters and semi-annual review of our executive session minutes, removing the discussion of appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees. At this point, are there any other additions to the agenda? All right, none at this time. Moving along to the approval of last month's minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes of February 24th, 2021? All right, I see that no changes are necessary. May I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the February 24th, 2021 meeting of the Board of Directors?
Dee Vasili making that motion.
This is Joe. I'll second.
Thank you. Melinda, please call the roll.
Dee Vasili,
Yes.
Jeff Butler,
Yes.
Joe Philippek,
Yes.
Melinda Riddick, yes, John Savage, absent Eva Serrano,
Yes.
Andrew Smith.
Yes, motion carries. Next is the Executive Director's Report. Michaela.
Thank you, Andrew. So the only thing that anybody wants to talk about is the vaccine, and I'm no exception. So here's a quick update on what the library is doing to help our community get vaccinated. First, I'll mention that our phone bank has been fielding calls with questions about vaccination, and they've been helping customers register for information and updates, and also to actually make appointments when they can. As vaccine becomes more available, I'm guessing we'll be doing a lot more of that, which is great. We're happy to do that. We also have vaccination stations, and it's not what it sounds like. They're actually internet stations where people can go to register for information and for appointments themselves in our facilities while they're actually here. We're in partnership with the Kane County Health Department to provide public programming and information for our customers. We hosted programs in English and Spanish, and we'll continue to work with them and with all of our trusted partners to keep our community informed and connected. You guys might have heard that on Monday, this past Monday, March 22nd, government employees became eligible for vaccination in Illinois. And that includes us, that includes library staff. Of course, eligibility isn't availability, but it is a step in the right direction for our staff. And then finally, I do have one non-vaccine related item. You guys might remember that when we were discussing becoming a library district, one of the things we talked about during those discussions was joining a consortium so that our customers would have access to a broader collection without the long wait times that can accompany interlibrary loan. So we've been working on that for a few months now, and I think by next month we will have a recommendation to bring to you. We've evaluated all of the existing consortia that are around us and that are available, that are open to new members, and we're focusing in on two possibilities. One is a really traditional library consortium with shared rules, a governing board, everybody does the same thing at the same time. And then there's another one that is really just a very loose coalition of some of the biggest libraries in Northern Illinois. And while the customer experience isn't quite as seamless, there are advantages in that autonomy and also in the collection sizes of these other libraries. We are more similar to them in terms of our size. So we have some more homework and legwork to do. We've got our circulation managers meeting up with circulation managers from libraries in both of these other organizations. And we're gonna see what workflows look like and some other things. And we've sort of had informal talks with both of these, and I think that they would both be happy to have us join, but we haven't formally applied anywhere. And as I said, more information to come. We're just I wanted to give you guys an update on that because I know it's been a while since we've talked about it. And that's what I have for you. If you have any questions, I'm happy to try to answer.
When we discuss that next month, will that be discussion purposes only or to vote?
I think probably we will be at the discussion only phase next time. I think that either consortium will require a board resolution to formally allow us to join. I'm not sure that we're going to be at that stage by next month, but we might be.
Okay.
At the very least, we'll have a formal recommendation to bring to you. And then if there is a resolution or something that's needed, that'll be the next step. And then there will be an additional expenditure, related to either consortium, which we knew about and we budgeted for. So, and then the board will approve that expenditure as well.
All right, I look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next is the foundation report. Laura.
Thank you, Andrew. Hi, everyone. It's nice to see you. I sent you out an email with a recap of 2020 and then some new information for 2021. So I'm going to touch on that. And if you have any questions, please let me know. In the review, you could see that the total amount that we raised in 2020 was $382,000 and some odd dollars. And when we pivoted, when COVID hit, we really thought we would not even achieve what we did. Our new budget was reflective of a lower amount. We did see a 30% drop in donations. You may recall in 2019, we were working fast and furiously on the new bookmobile campaign. So that was a very, not an apples to apples comparison from the previous year. What we did with the monies that we received in 2020 is, as you, I think, know, we really hit the road hard giving out literacy packets. We felt that really fit the mission of the library to reach all residents, and the ones we tried to connect with were those that didn't really have online access very readily. So we were pretty pleased with how it all went. Just to let you know, we are continuing to fund packets in 2021. We just sent one out at the end of February. We're not doing them monthly like we had done in 2020. Our next one will be at the end of May. Some of you, Eva, you may even know this, they're kind of not calling it the summer slide right now. They're calling it the COVID slide. So we're going to try and do what we can, during those months off of school, I guess we could say again, and keep really reaching out, to our residents. Is there anything I can answer for you from 2020? Anything that you need more information on? Okay. Well, then I shared with you the resources that we do have allocated to the new main library. You guys, I'm going back 6 years. Wow. New bookmobile campaign. And to date, we have $267,200 allocated. The foundation needs to raise a total of $438,000. So that gives us about $176,000 to raise. So how do we plan to accomplish that? Dee is one of our co-chairs and Sherman Jenkins is the other co-chair. Sherman and I are in the process of making appointments with the city leaders right now. We obviously recognize there is an election coming up, so we're, basing it with that in mind as well. Our template is all set, so we personalize them. So I'm going to give you guys, I'll shoot you on an email report to let you know how things are going. Then when Dee gets back, she's really working with me on individuals in the community, and we're going to go out and start seeing some people. The foundation board met on Monday, and my goal is for each of them to make at least one call as well. So that's the kind of the quiet phase. Now we're going to kind of move into the multi-channel approach here. And so next week, if you have time, if you could log on to the foundation's website, you can access it right through the library. It's being all set up for the campaign, and feel free to give me some feedback, but there's some good impact stories on there about people who have really loved the bookmobile and it's impacted their lives. And we'll keep adding to those impact stories as we proceed throughout the campaign this year. We've retained a vendor called Visio Arts. They're actually located in the old library. So it was kind of fun going there to see them. The 2021 fundraising trends really say that, digital and really doing a comprehensive outreach is a direction we need to go. So we are producing 4 videos, and we'll use them throughout the year, and they'll highlight the impact stories. And the bookmobile is all about community, so it just makes a lot of good sense to do as much as we can to really keep a presence out there on all the neat things the bookmobile does. We have been going back and forth on trying to pick out a date to launch the public phase. And there's 2 components to the public phase of the campaign. One, it will be the new bookmobile reveal, the design, kind of cool. And the other is we will be recognizing the Dunham Foundation for their generous grant to us in 2019. So I've been back and forth in conversation, and please mark your calendars for July 15th. Based on COVID and all sorts of other things, the Dunham Foundation, and you guys know they went from the Dunham Fund to the Dunham Foundation. So I just thought in case you didn't know that, you might be interested. But we're pretty excited, and stay tuned. We'll get you more information on that as well. Also, as part of the campaign, we are going to do 2 events. We're going to continue with our virtual 5K in August, and then we're going to do a dueling piano auction, but it's going to have a virtual and a live component. We figured by December, maybe we can get together a little bit. And if you guys have never been to a dueling piano kind of thing, it's a lot of fun. And it's not something else we're seeing other organizations in Aurora doing. So we're trying to really create a different kind of fun thing to come to. So any questions on that information? Anything I could tell you more about?
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm sure you've talked about it, Laura, but would we be allowed to have like a corporate sponsor advertised on the side of the bus? Maybe in one of those lit up signs. I see them more and more, right, on vehicles. I'm sure you guys talked about that.
We
Okay.
did about naming the bookmobile, and we do have an identified amount for which a donor could name the entire bookmobile. And I'm really still in conversation with the Dunham Foundation to really determine, what direction that might go in based on their generosity. But yes, you can. Now, I think we're going to be, Michaela, correct me if I'm wrong, but the decision we made is we wouldn't put a huge logo on there, but we'd certainly say sponsored by. We really wanted to still reflect the Aurora Public Library District, and as it's driving around, people know it's the bookmobile and they're excited. So I'd be happy to meet with you. There's just some parameters there
Yeah,
that we're trying to make sure, benefit the donor as well as really reflect our organization.
yeah, I
So-
understand. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on that? All right, well, I did want to share with you as well that we are seeking grants for the bookmobile itself, and also for things that would happen within the bookmobile: programs, services, collections, etc. So we're working on that. The foundation has paid the vendor 50% of the cost, and so it's up and moving. And I also just included for you guys just the other important dates in that little packet I sent you. And if you can mark your calendars, that would be great. And that's really what I had for you tonight. Did I miss anything?
I think so.
Okay, do you feel kind of updated then? I do want to say this will be my last presentation before I know there might be, some members retiring. And I just wanted to let you know it's been such an honor working with all of you. I have enjoyed it so much, and I think you'd be disappointed if I didn't say, even if you happen to be one of those members retiring, I'm still going to call on you for the bookmobile, because I know you love the library and of course our community. So, but thank you for everything. It's been an honor.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Laura.
Anything else I can try and?
Can I bring up something? Perhaps some of the retiring board members might want to help with the foundation. What do you think about that?
Go D.
Throwing it out there.
You think about that. We'll give you a little time though.
Yeah,
Okay,
A
so
week. No,
off the
again,
board, but not off the hook.
yes.
Have
Right.
Well said. Well
you been
said.
planning that?
What'd you
I've been
say,
sitting on
Joe?
that all day.
All right.
Thank you all. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
All right. At this point, are there any public comments? Oh, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, here we go. We do have a public comment today, just one.
Okay.
All right. This came via email, and so I'm just going to read it aloud to you. Hi, I'm Ken Van Andel, West Branch patron. I would like to submit not one, but 3 compliments that I hope the board will be happy to second. Parentheses. Perhaps Michaela should pause here for the gasps of surprise to finish. Close parentheses. Number 1. A big well done to Michaela, Tom, Scott, Becky, and their staff for extending the open hours and keeping them the same for all 3 locations. Thank you. Number 2, a compliment to the security company. The door guards at West Branch are wonderful, very friendly, always welcoming, and a bright face to greet you whenever you come to the library. Number 3, a special thank you to Miriam for her COVID-related links on the homepage. She has made it a one-stop shop for those of us trying to score a vaccine appointment and saves us having to search individually for pharmacy and government registration links. It's very helpful. Respectfully submitted for your concurrence, Ken Van Andel, card holder since 1970.
All right.
That's
Wonderful.
all.
All right. Any questions on the February/March bills?
We do have some questions on the bills. And as in recent meetings, we're doing the It Takes a Village approach. And so, Tom, I'm going to turn it over to you. We had a question about the staff recognition entries that were on the bills this year.
Sounds good. So I know Miriam has just a couple images that I wanted to share that kind of showcase what these expenditures reflect. We have a very modest budget that kind of we've used in the past for, introducing staff to new hires and managers. So we'll have some snacks there, or celebrating people who are retiring with some light snacks and things of that nature. Obviously, this year we haven't been able to do any of that. And one of the things we heard from our management team was that, a year into this pandemic, our staff really could have used a boost of getting recognized, getting some, attention their way, which is well deserved. So what we did was we turned it back over to the managers and said, you guys can divide this budget up equally, and then you guys go back and celebrate your team in a way that you think would be most effective, what they would appreciate most. So that's what we did. It was about $15 per staff member. And they did things like this, get giant snack bags and snack tables this is at our Eola branch. Some people got coffee cards. Other people got, low amount gift cards. But I think just the fact that we are thinking of them and really appreciating their work wasn't the important thing here. And that's what those expenditures are.
Can I add a little something to that? We also, Miriam designed and created a little photo frame with a little card in it, and every manager got one for every one of their staff members, and they all wrote a little personal note on the back of the card. And the card just has some tips about self-care, about exercising and disconnecting from the internet, and just taking care of yourself in general. So it was a tough year, and February was a really, really tough month for everybody. And so we sensed the morale, people needed a little something, and this isn't everything. And it's not everything that we want to do for our staff, but sometimes the little things really tell the tale. And I think people really appreciated it. And everybody loves snacks. So, can't go wrong with that.
Super, yeah.
We have a bunch of cuties working at the library. Bunch of cuties.
And so the expenditures are listed in it separately, on the sheet, because every manager kind of did their own thing, responsive to their own staff. And we did allocate, Tom mentioned this, we allocated the money by head count. So it turned out to be about $15 per staff member.
Yeah, and the cuties went faster than anything, Ava. You guys know this, so, yeah.
Not surprised.
Does that answer your question, Jeff?
Yes, thank you. And I have been really appreciative of some of the new and creative things that I've seen on the webpage and in the library. So I really do appreciate the staff and all of the work that's gone on by any number of people. So I really do appreciate it. And I just I'm really pleased with seeing that even a small gesture we're making is saying something good for our staff, and we really do appreciate that. So I thank you for doing that.
Okay. We had another question about an expenditure related to the Xantrex system for the Matthews specialty vehicles for the bookmobile, and I'm going to let Heather take that one.
Right. So Jeff, I think if I understood it right, your question about the battery system was about that total cost.
No, it's really, it was odd to me that would be called out separate as far as, did we have to buy the generator or the hybrid system to get it onto the bookmobile? It was just strange for me about how it was purchased.
When we wrote the original RFP for the bookmobile, we wrote it kind of broadly because we did want to get as many quotes in as we could. And when we selected Matthews, we decided after that to go back and ask if we could do anything to make our new bookmobile a little more eco-friendly. And so that's why we came back with that second request for the Xantrex battery system. That wasn't in the initial quote, so it did require an additional step for approval.
Okay. And this is a portion of it because obviously it's not the whole amount that we talked about.
Actually, the portion that the board approved will cover the entire change to add in that battery system. So that's it.
But
Right.
this is 50% of that, right, Heather? This is half of the total expenditure. This is a $26,000 expenditure.
Oh, yeah, that part of it. Yeah. We're going to use the same terms for the Xantrax system as we do for the rest of the bookmobile. So we'll continue to pay for the Xantrax as we pay for the regular bookmobile.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, and then we had two other ones that I will field. So one question was about E-rate rewiring and Juniper warranty. So the question is about the E-rate rewiring. So there's a $65,000 expenditure for rewiring projects that are happening here at Santori. So the optical network that we installed when we built the building began to fail shortly, thereafter. And so Jonathan has been slowly rewiring the whole facility over the last few years, and there's been some work done at the branches too. So any project that provides or improves internet service to the public is reimbursable by the federal E-rate program. These projects are 80% reimbursable. So even though the rewiring projects are really extensive and expensive, the E-rate program makes it doable for us. I'll say for Jonathan as well, that when he started with us 5 years ago, he knew nothing about the E-rate program, and he's learned so much, and he saved us hundreds of thousands of dollars over the past couple of years. The second expenditure that was called out in this question is $8,000 for an E-rate consultant. And so it's a federal grant program, so it's extremely complex, the bidding process and the reporting. And so we do hire this consultant for $8,000 a year to help us with these projects, and it's well worth it. They save us tens of thousands of dollars every year. And then we had another question about Swan Expenditures. There were 6 instances labeled R, B, R, C. And so these are items that our customers borrowed from the Swan Consortium, from a library belonging to the Swan Consortium, that they lost or didn't return or whatever. And so then the deal is with these kind of lending is that then we reimburse those libraries for their lost materials. We usually don't see a whole bunch all at once like this, but because of COVID, a lot of libraries are just now sort of reinstituting this billing and due dates and things like that. And I think a few of these might have also gotten lost in the finance manager transition. So, you might see one of these a month or once every couple of months normally, but they were all kind of clumped together. And there's 6 separate expenditures just because that's the way Swan invoiced us. That's it.
Where is Swan?
Swan is a really large consortium that's all over the place. North suburbs to south suburbs, pretty far west, some little random places. Joe probably knows the answer to this better than I know the answer to this, but it's very large and quite extensive.
Yeah, probably over 100 libraries.
Yeah.
And this is one example when Michaela was talking about the possibility of Aurora joining a consortium. Swan is an example. There are, several others. And that's, of course, one of the advantages is that, if you're part of a consortium and want to get a book that belongs to a library 30 miles from you, if that library is part of the consortium, it's in the catalog that you're used to accessing, and it's as easy as clicking a button, and then the delivery system kind of takes over from there. So, but yeah, Swan really does encompass a lot of the suburban Chicago areas.
Great, thank you.
Does that answer your questions fully, Jeff?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Sure.
All right, with that, may I have a motion and a second to approve the monthly bills in the amount of $843,316.71.
So moved. This is Eva. I'll move.
I'll second that. This is Dee Basili.
All right, please call the roll, Melinda.
Dee Basili,
Yes.
Jeff Butler,
Yes,
Joe Philippek,
Yes.
Melinda Riddick, yes, John Savage, absent, Eva Serrano,
Yes.
Andrew Smith.
Yes, motion carries. All right, next is the per capita grant. I think Brenda, you're going to discuss this.
Yes, I am. Thank you. So I have chapter 3, and that's the personnel chapter. And it's hardly a chapter, it's about a page, if you can see that in your notes. So I just wanted to highlight some things. I think Miriam's gonna, there we go. Just put some slides up to help. So if you can go to the next one, Miriam. So there's several different things that I just want to hit kind of quickly, and then we'll go into a couple things I want to talk a little bit more in depth about. But some of the things that the grant or that they require us to do is, the first one is to have a board approved personnel policy, which we did. And if you remember, back in 2017, we went through and revamped our entire handbook. And it's due for a review. So we'll be taking a look at that sometime this year for some minor changes. Obviously we're going to change our name to Aurora Public Library District, but there are a few things that we probably will tweak or change, and you'll see that, and we'll have our meetings to do that. But we do have a handbook that we use. For job descriptions, I'm so happy to say that all of our bargaining unit job descriptions for all of those positions were updated this year. The union partnered with us and they reviewed them, and so everybody's in agreement. And non-bargaining unit, we haven't done a full scale reviewed every single one. We do look at them as the positions come open to see if we need to tweak them or change them. But a full review, we hope to get a full review in later this year. I think COVID has changed a lot about how we do our work, and that probably will reflect in some new job descriptions. Salary ranges, we do review them. I think if you remember last January, I came to you and we walked through some new pay scales for our non-bargaining unit staff. They hadn't been reviewed since before I was here, so we used a library survey that HR Source does, as well as some benchmarking with Laconia to make sure that our pay rates were within range and competitive, comparable, and things like that. And so we have that. The bargaining unit rates are part of the collective bargaining agreement, so that's where that comes into play, and those can be found in the bargaining unit. We talk about, there's a lot about state laws and that our policies are in compliance with federal and state laws. And if you look in your packet, you'll see that page 10 of the publication is actually pretty much a list of all the different laws that we need to follow. And I can say that we're in compliance with all of the laws. I stay current in making sure that we are staying, understand what's going on. I'm a member of several different organizations that provide me push updates about law changes. And then I also go out there and look for them. But HR Source, which used to be the Management Association, if you remember, SHRM, which is the Society of Human Resource Management, and then IPELRA, which is the Illinois Public Employee Labor Relations Association. They've all been really valuable resources to help, particularly last year with COVID, to help us stay ahead of all of the different things that we needed to make sure that we were doing to stay in line with all the different acts and laws that were being passed. But they help with all of those different requirements. And then there's talks about orientation, and all of our new staff go through an orientation. We plan out, they sit down with somebody in HR, and then they have a scheduled time to learn their job and learn what needs to be done with their supervisor and within their departments. Part of that is also a 60 and 120-day check-in that they sit down with their supervisor, and just to find out how their training's going, what they need, how they like it, what's happening. And it helps us to catch anything early if there are some issues or if there is extra help that they need. And then this year, we just started, actually, this is the first quarter we've done it, but it was really challenging to do performance appraisals during a pandemic. Many of our staff weren't on site that often. If they were in a different bubble than their manager, they rarely saw their manager. And everybody's, jobs just really got kind of upset and upturned, and people were doing all different sorts of things. And it just didn't feel right to do our old process, which was more complicated, pretty cumbersome, and had a big goal setting section, and it was really difficult to figure out how to set goals when things were changing on the fly like they had been for COVID. So we came up with a new quarterly check-in process, which we've gotten really good feedback on, and it's just a handful of questions that it's designed to facilitate a conversation with a supervisor and the person that works for them. This quarter, the questions were things like, what accomplishments are you proud of from 2020? I'm sure a lot of those were surviving 2020, right? What do you want to work on in the next quarter? you know, do you have any talents or skills that we're underutilizing? And we have an EDI question in there so we can get a gauge on how our staff are feeling about that. It doesn't take, you know, it takes about a half an hour maybe to walk through it with somebody, but it's just simpler. And I think when things are simple, people are more likely to actually do them. So, so far so good. And I'll keep, you know, we can keep you updated on how that's working. We go to the next slide, Miriam. So staffing levels. So there's a chart in the appendix that kind of gives you guidance for how your staffing level should be. And I did want to talk a little bit about this because they're really based on your population and what stage your organization is in. So, and it's based on full-time equivalents. So this isn't our total head count. This is our FTEs, which means that our part-timers, you know, 2 part-timers equal 1 full-time equivalent. You know, those standards have been in place for a really long time. I think Michaela told me that they've been around since she's been doing this work. So I don't know that they've been adjusted to account for things like how technology impacts workflows and things like that. So they may be a little bit on the higher side just from that. But our head count, if you look, we are currently at 120. So based on our population served, we're close to that minimum, but you know, we're gonna aspire to move towards the growing. I think you know that we've had some challenges in the last few years. You know, in 2016 we did have to do some layoffs, and then as we went into our journey to become a district, you know, now we have a better budget to work with, and then COVID hit. So I think we're still, you know, we're a little hesitant to start increasing those numbers until we have a better idea of how COVID is going to impact us as we come out of it and as we move into next year. So, you know, it's definitely on our radar to start looking at where we can add staff where we need it. We're just going to be a little conservative about that as we go. Okay, we go to the next one, Miriam. Thanks. Salaries and fringe benefits. So you know, they do say what percent of our budget our salaries should be, and then what are salaries plus fringe benefits. And fringe benefits are your Medicare, Social Security taxes, our IMRF. That's the numbers that go into that. So just to give you an idea, in 2019, before we became a district and when our budget was, you know, around that $11,000 mark, our salary and fringe were 72% of our budget. Now, because IMRF is such a rich benefit, we actually scale a little higher on the fringe percentage, and the salary might be just a little bit below that 60%, but when you put them together, you get to that 72%. If you look at this current budget year, we're only at 56% of the district budget, so the new budget that we have. But if you remember, we've talked about trying to keep our spending to our 2019 budget amounts. So if you compare where we're at with our 2019, it's right in line. It's, you know, about a 1.5 points higher than it was in 2019, which would account for pay increases that were made per the contract and per other things that we've done. So, you know, we're still in good shape there. And you'll see as we start to probably, you know, come out of COVID and figure out, get our footing and know where we're at, well, you'll see us moving closer to that 70% of the real budget. But it'll take a little time. And then professional development. This was a great one. And if there's any silver lining to COVID, I think it was that we were able to get more staff trained, allow more staff to attend conferences, and because everything went virtual. So when everything went virtual, our costs came down. You know, ILA was a virtual, I think PLA was the last program we had, or the last conference we had that was actually on site where there was travel involved. So when we took a look at the budget and realized that, you know, the cost of these conferences is, you know, dramatically less than if you send somebody on site and you have no travel expenses, we were able to actually send more people to conferences because they were more cost effective as they were virtual. So that was like a huge, huge win. And then the other part was, you know, is when we shut down last year, you know, we sent staff home with Chromebooks and laptops and said, you know, we don't have any work for you to do right now, but if you want to do some training, do some training. So a lot of them took advantage of that and did, you know, a lot of them did the Ryan Dowd training, his homelessness training. Even though they'd done it before, they did it again as a refresher, or they did it for the first time. They took advantage of lynda.com classes. You know, we code our training time as a separate code in payroll. And I saw a lot of that training time, and I still continue to see a lot of it. So I think that that's been our biggest silver lining to COVID, is we've been able to really take advantage of getting our staff trained, and having them go to conferences that they might not have otherwise been able to go to because of travel limitations. So that is it for professional development. And that's really everything. I can tell you that all in all, we do meet the standards for all the personnel pieces that are outlined in Chapter 3. So if I can answer any questions for you, anything I just talked about or anything else in Chapter 3, I'm happy to do that.
Not for me.
And I have a question.
Yes.
First, thank you very much. That was fantastic.
You're welcome.
Are the literacy packets part of the 200,000 people that you mentioned? Is the 200,000 people we serve?
No, they just use the population of Aurora. I just use the population of Aurora.
Okay.
So,
Okay, so.
yeah.
Okay. And then I'm just wondering, because I think you talk about something that many organizations, around the country, around the world have discovered, this online training and how cost effective it is, but you can still yield some of the same benefits. And based on your experience, how do you think this online training will actually translate into better service to our clients, to our community, to as employees?
Yeah, I think, a lot of it, there's quite a bit of customer service training out there. So I think that helps. And, Ryan Dowd's training is incredible. I don't know if you've ever seen any of his training, but it's just amazing. And you can watch the same one over and over again and pick up little pointers. So I just think that, people are learning how to do things differently, maybe more efficiently, and then also how to to serve our customers better. So I think there's lots of different ways that can improve.
So when an employee is evaluated, do they somehow get credit for that, or is it part of their goals for the year? I'm just wondering.
One of the questions in our check-in is, what trainings or courses have you taken that have been valuable for you?
Oh.
So that is one of the questions that we do take. We don't, at this point, we aren't capturing every single training. As people get certificates, they certainly send them up and we keep track of that. And if it's a required training, we do. We haven't done the best job of keeping track of what all the different specific trainings people are doing. As we get our new system in place, our new HR system, we probably will have a place to do that, and we might be able to better keep track of exactly what people have been doing. They do record it on their time card, what training they took, but we don't take it any further than that at this point.
Thank you.
Sure.
And Brenda, how, with the Workplace Transparency Act and like the harassment prevention training that's now required, how do is that something that staff engages like with the recording, or is that something we do like in-house in terms of that requirement?
Well, we did nothing in-house last year.
Well, true.
Our attorney actually was very gracious, and she did, our attorney, Bobby Holsworth, who does our negotiations for us. We had 2 sessions for managers. So we did a separate training for managers. They were all via Zoom, and we recorded them. And then we did, I think, 3 sessions or 4 sessions for staff. They were a little shorter. They didn't cover all the same things, and we recorded those as well. So when we get a new manager, now we have a recording that they can watch so they can catch up. And then we have the same for staff. When new staff come on board, they watch one of the trainings that Bobby did via recording. So we'll probably do the recordings for this year, and then maybe every other year we'll do a live training again, but that's how we're keeping up with it. And we did get everybody through it last year.
Great. Thank you.
Brenda, is there a way to, or have you shared training that certain individuals have found as being really good to say, hey, this was a great, like the Ryan Dowd training, hey, this is a great one. Everybody should consider doing that. Is there a way that you've done that, and have we shared that kind of learning?
Not formally, but when COVID started and we started using Teams, we created a team called the Water Cooler, and it was a place for people to start sharing things, and it took the kind of the life of, when you're hanging out at the water cooler at work, well, we couldn't do that anymore, talking about things that were going on that you liked, either, here's a good movie to watch, or here's a great Netflix show to binge, or here's a great training. So there's been some of that organically where people have put training lists out there of things
Good.
that they found valuable. And we have at times said, yes, this would be a good one to take. It's not a regular place that people can go, but that's a really good idea. So I think that's something we could do going forward.
Okay,
Yeah.
it seems like there's so many opportunities and there's so much out there. If there's something that's really good, just publicizing it might be a good thing.
It can be overwhelming at times because there's
Right.
so much out there these days. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you.
And
Sure.
Jeff, I was just going to mention one thing around that. A few things that we've done too are, think about, those of our staff who got the training come back and being the trainer.
Mhm.
Mhm.
That's been a motto we've used. We've had kind of debriefing sessions where we invite staff who have attended one conference to come back and share out, across staff. So we all kind of learn what other people went to in different programs within a conference. And that's been good. And I think, the Harwood Virtual Lab is something that we were able to send 7 staff, and we want to keep trickling staff into that conference so that, the organizational knowledge just kind of keeps growing. So those are a couple different models that kind of address what you're asking about.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, next is, I think, Michaela, you're going to talk about passing an ordinance electing participants.
That's right. So IMRF is the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund. It is part of our benefits package currently. Now that we're a library district, we have to elect independently to participate in IMRF. We were under the city's umbrella before. So this ordinance is part of that process. Brenda has received and will continue to receive training. She will be our IMRF agent and will manage our participation in this retirement fund. I wonder if anybody has any questions about this or about the ordinance. It's as you can see in your packet, it is a form that we fill out, and you guys approve it. We'll get it signed. Melinda will send it over to you to get it signed, and then we get it back to them, and then the wheels keep turning on their end.
I presume there's no effect for staff. This is just something we have to do, like in terms of vested tiers, all of those IMRF.
That's correct. Staff benefits continue at the level that they've already accrued, and it just rolls right over into this new organization for them.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's served us well so far, and I don't see any reason why we wouldn't just continue on with that. There's no additional discussion. May I have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 2021-2, electing the library district's participation in the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund?
Is Joe so moved?
Dee Basili, I'll second that.
Thank you. Melinda, please call the roll.
Dee Basili,
Yes.
Jeff Butler. Jeff Butler,
Sorry, yes, sorry.
Joe Philippek,
Yes.
Melinda Riddick, yes. John Savage, absent. Eva Serrano,
Yes.
Andrew Smith.
Yes, motion carries. Next, Michaela, you're going to discuss approval of an ethics ordinance.
Right. So every unit of local government is required to have an ethics ordinance in force, effective 2003, excuse me, as you see in the ordinance that's in your packet. As a city department, we operated under the city's ethics ordinance, and now as a library district, we adopt our own. This ordinance is taken directly from the model ordinance that's in the statute. I spoke to Roger about it. He said, yep, just use the model ordinance and off you go. So we inserted our own information in there, and so we're just asking you to approve this tonight as required by law.
All right. Any discussion on that? All right, with that being said, may I have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 2021-3?
Dee Basili, so moved.
Second, this is Eva Serrano.
Thank you. Melinda, please call the roll.
Dee Basili,
Yes.
Jeff Butler,
Yes.
Joe Philippek,
Yes.
Melinda Riddick, yes. John Savage, absent. Eva Serrano,
Yes.
Andrew Smith.
Yes, motion carries. Next is a discussion of a reopening plan for the library. Michaela?
Okay. Well, finally, we get to talk about something fun. I'm going to share my screen with you guys. So I sent you all a preview of this last week, and you know, we can see our way to the end of this pandemic now, finally. And so, you know, we say that we plan and God laughs, right? But you have to have a plan. We knew that when we contracted services last year, we started planning then for our reopening. And then earlier this year in 2021, I'm sorry, we realized that soon enough, we would be ready to open up more fully. As positivity rates go down, as vaccination rates go up, it's time to start thinking about getting back to some more normal levels of service. So the first step, I'll just do some highlights here for you guys. Okay? You've all seen this. So the first step is realigning all of our services. When we rolled everything out, we did it one department at a time, one service at a time. And so things weren't necessarily aligned in terms of timeframes. So this is actually going on right now. We're in our second week of this. The next step, on April 12th, we're going to eliminate appointments for visiting the library, and people will love that. We're going to ask our guards to roam. We're going to continue to monitor mask adherence and capacity limits. We're going to increase our capacity limits per state guidelines up to 50%. We're going to allow longer visits. Right now it's 1 hour. We're going to encourage a limit of 2. And we're going to open up our makerspace by appointment, probably also our local history center by appointment. And then, you know, masking and distancing. I'll just say now, masking and distancing continue until our public health officials tell us to stop. We're just going to keep doing that. And then about a month later, in May, in the middle of May, we're going to eliminate those time limits. We're going to put more seating, more furniture out on the floor. In-person programming resumes. We're going to reintroduce some of our special collections, you know, like the fishing poles and things like that, the things that we already had. And then the plan is by June 1st to sort of resume full hours and services. So we'll go back to our almost our pre-COVID hours, Monday through Thursday, 9 to 8, Friday, Saturday, 9 to 5, all locations. And then on Sundays, we'll be closed during the summer, just like always. We'll resume indoor programming as appropriate. So, you know, right now, most of our program rooms are taken up with quarantine of materials. And we don't really know how much longer we're going to keep doing that. Probably not that much longer. But so when we say as appropriate, you know, this depends a lot on what those quarantine requirements continue to be and what the social distancing requirements continue to be. If we have to keep 6 feet between people in these public spaces, it's still going to be hard to have public programs because our meeting rooms are not that large. But we're gonna wait till we get a little closer to that time to assess that, and we're going to continue to assess it. And then this is when our staff bubbles, as we call them, are going to be recombined. So this is why we can go back to full hours, is because we'll be able to have all of our staff in the buildings for most of the time. We're still going to allow remote work for staff that can do that, especially in places where the behind the scenes work can be done at home and where that work is difficult to execute on site because of social distancing. You know, we at our 2 branches especially, we just don't have a lot of staff space. So we're going to continue to allow people to work from home where that makes sense. And we're going to continue our phone bank, which we have found very successful. People have one number, all of our customers call one number, they get routed to the right person, and they get their questions answered as quickly as possible. So, and that's also something that can be done remotely. So that that will help us, I think, in those situations where we still need to keep fewer staff in the building. And then our curbside and home delivery services will continue as long as they remain popular. We may have to make modifications as to hours depending on how that goes, but we're going to assess those. And I honestly think they're both going to stay popular and maybe even become more popular. But that's sort of a snapshot of the plan. We're aware that things may need to change, things may need to slow down. Things probably will not speed up. This is probably as fast as we're going to be able to go, because our managers and our staff need to be able to plan their schedules on site. And there are things in the buildings that we need to do, and technology things and collection things that we need to do to make these things happen. So we find that our staff and our customers too enjoy having at least a blueprint, at least something to look forward to. And we will start also doing some public messaging around these different steps in coming days. So I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any on this reopening plan.
I don't have any specific questions. I'm excited for seeing this. I mean, step 4, June doesn't seem so far away, if I can be honest. That sounds wonderful. And we're almost to step 2 already, since we're moving right along. So as hopefully we continue trending downward on cases and everything, and we can keep to this time frame, excellent. I think that's wonderful. If it's adjust by a couple days or a couple weeks, that's fine as well. But absolutely, I think this is exciting. I think people will be glad to see this, and hopefully by this summer, we're up and running again like we used to be. So
I'll say too, Andrew, our staff are so excited to get back, get out of the bubbles, just to be in one team again. People miss their work friends, and so that's nice to hear. I've gotten a lot of positive response, even though people are still worried. They're worried about the virus and the effects and things like that. But we can see the end.
Sure.
We can see it from here.
You might have addressed this, but I don't know if you said, when would board meetings go back to in person?
Right. So I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
There's a bill in the legislature that will allow us to keep doing remote meetings, or at least partially remote meetings, even outside of a declaration of emergency. So I don't know where it is. It certainly hasn't been passed into law yet, but it's in discussions, I know. So for myself, I would really like to continue to have the option of a hybrid meeting where some people are here and some people can Zoom in. And I think it makes it more accessible for the public. I think it makes it easier for people who are out of town or just can't get here on time, or for whatever reason. It just makes it easier. We've had a quorum every time, and it's great, So we'll see. We'll keep doing it remotely as long as the disaster proclamation is in place, and as long as members continue to want to meet remotely.
Absolutely. Wonderful.
All right. May I? Oh,
sure.
Mr. President.
Yeah, go for it.
So this is very exciting. And I'm just wondering, would your cleaning cost go up in a different way? Not just because, you'll have more people, but just in a different way. Do you think your cleaning services would go up?
That's a great question. And it's hard to imagine our cleaning services going up with as much as we're doing now. We're already doing a ton. But I will say that, our staff are doing cleaning while we're open. And then we have an overnight crew coming in to do deep cleaning, in the evening when we're closed. The trend really seems to be away, the focus, I should say, really seems to be away from the sanitation and more towards the monitoring of social distance and masking. We're more worried now about each other than we are about surfaces that we're touching. because we know from the research that the virus dies so quickly on those surfaces. But we are still, of course, going to keep cleaning and sanitizing, and we still have plexiglass everywhere and hand sanitizer everywhere, and none of that is going away anytime soon.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
And
All right.
Michaela, for, I guess you or even if any of the other managers just, and I know it may be hard to kind of characterize a community of 200,000 and what they are feeling, but you know, when I look at this list and the things that we phase back in, are there certain things that our patrons are most wishing for in terms of, you know, if they could choose a couple things, whether it's the elimination of time limits for browsing, the study rooms? I'm just curious.
Right.
Impressions.
I'd like to throw that over to Tom and then ask Heather to chime in as well.
Sure. So I think, you know, one of the big things was this March 13th move that we did, where we were able to align all services. That really just helped clarify, you know, when we're open, you can do what you need to do. And that was there because we were being ultra safe with staff and customers with bubbling that required us to kind of have that the disjointed services. But that was a big one. I think too, you know, study rooms have been requested, and you know, I think there's oftentimes when people want to meet together in study rooms, like there are tutor things going on, there's project work for school going on, there are business meetings going on. So that being able to kind of enhance and expand access and service for that will be huge. And then I would also say programming is just something that, you know, in-person programming is a big thing for libraries now. You know, that is a third space for people. It's a learning space for people. It's a social space. It's a creative space. Those would be three things I would mention.
Thank you.
I think what I am seeing is that customers are ready to just walk in. You know, the appointment system made a lot of sense when we started it. And as numbers have gotten better and everybody's gotten used to the distancing and masking, they're less important. So being able to up our capacity limits a little bit and allow people to walk in without having to check in with the guard, I think that's going to be a big thing and make people feel a lot more welcome and a lot more willing to come in, you know, just drop in and check out what's going on at the library. The other thing is just not having such tight limits for visits, whether it's the expansion to 2 hours or just, you know, saying we're not going to worry about visits at all. The length of your visit, a lot of our customers want to come in and sit down at a table and work for a while. So not having to worry about the length of your visit is going to be nice as well.
Thank you both.
All right. All right. I think we are ready to move to executive session. May I have a motion and a second to adjourn to executive session to discuss collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, 5 ILCS 120/2C2, and a semi-annual review of executive session minutes, 5 ILC 120-2C21.
This is Joe, so moved.
Dee Basili, I'll second that.
Thank you both. Melinda, please call the roll.
Dee Basili,
Yes.
Jeff Butler,
Yes.
Joe Philippek,
Yes.
Melinda Riddick, yes. John Savage, absent. Eva Serrano,
Yes.
Andrew Smith.
Yes, motion is granted, and I will see everyone in executive session. Wonderful. All right. May I have a motion and a second to adjourn executive session?
Dee Basili, motion, please. To adjourn.
Melinda Riddick, second.
Thank you. Melinda, please call the roll.
Dee Basili,
Yes.
Jeff Butler,
Yes.
Joe Philippek,
Yes.
Melinda Riddick, yes. John Savage, absent. Eva Serrano,
Yes.
Andrew Smith.
Yes, motion carries. Next, may I have a motion and a second to return to open session?
So moved. This is Eva.
This is Joe, I'll second.
Thank you both. May I have a roll call, Melinda?
Dee Basili,
Present.
Jeff Butler,
Yes.
Joe Philippek,
Yes.
Melinda Riddick, yes. John Savage, absent. Eva Serrano,
Yes.
Andrew Smith.
Yes, motion carries. Next, may I have a motion and a second to release for public inspection parts of the executive session minutes for September 23rd, 2020.
Melinda Riddick, so move.
Dee Basili, I'll second.
Thank you. The board has found that for reasons of personal privacy or protection of the public interest, the need for confidentiality still exists for parts of those executive session meeting minutes, and as such, they will be kept confidential at this time. Melinda, please call the roll.
Dee Basili,
Yes.
Jeff Butler,
Yes.
Joe Philippek,
Yes.
Melinda Riddick, yes. John Savage, absent. Eva Serrano,
Yes.
Andrew Smith.
Yes, motion carries. And lastly, there being no business before the board, may I have a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting at 7:22 p.m.
This is Joe, so move.
Dee Basili, I'll second that.
Thank you both. And last time, Melinda, would you please call the roll?
Dee Basili,
Yes.
Jeff Butler,
Yes.
Joe Philippek,
Yes.
Melinda Riddick, yes. John Savage, absent. Eva Serrano,
Yes.
Andrew Smith.
Yes. All right. Motion carries. We are adjourned, everybody.